Hello, everyone. Welcome. 12 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time, and we are live. We are live. We are live. I'm going to give it a minute or two. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. I'm so excited for this conversation today with Jason Shurka. It's going to be amazing, and I'm excited to have all of you here from around the world. I'm excited to have Jason come in and share with you everything that that he is sharing with all of us right now. So I'm going to pull Jason in now, and then I'm going to do a quick introduction. And this will allow people to give me 1 second. I'm going to try to get him in, and then I'm going to share with you guys who this amazing man is. Okay, we gotcha. Hello. I wanted to bring you in first, give people some time to connect with us.
Sure.
So you're good. I can hear you. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am so excited. I've been waiting for this day. I saw Jason on Alex Rose Betts' Instagram Live maybe 3 weeks ago, and my whole body was resonating with like, yes, yes, yes. And everything Jason said was exactly what I know to be my truth. And I knew that what he was bringing in was super powerful right now for the times that we're in. The information, the knowledge, the pyramid code that he just published, all of this is extremely important for us in order to really start to awaken even deeper into what we are doing here and how to navigate this with an open heart, with a higher state of consciousness, with awareness, with remembrance, because everything I teach is about remembering. It's about remembering what and why you're here, and how we are courageously navigating this massive shift in the collective consciousness. And what is so beautiful about Jason is that not only does he hold information that he has experienced himself, but he holds this knowledge from thousands of years ago that's not necessarily his, but he's sharing it with the human collective, in order to remind us that we've got this, that we will move through this. It's not cross our fingers, I hope we do. That this massive density that we're clearing, it's an absolute that we move through it. It's an absolute that we get through it. He's like a cheerleader, I feel like, for humanity right now. And so I could go on and on and on talking about how amazing this man is, but I'm going to just hand it over to Jason to say hello to all of you guys, and we're just going to dive in. We're going to take questions about 15 minutes before the hour, so please feel free to enter your questions down below in the question box, and we'll do as many as we can get to. And without further ado, welcome, Jason.
Lori, thank you very much for having me.
Yay.
Incredible experience. Thank you for the opportunity. Just to clarify a few things. First of all, thank you for the introduction. It was very, very nice. I will say I'm just a messenger. I was given incredible information. Some of it I know, some of it I was told. And as you said, we're living in a very important and significant time in our lives right now, in the world, in the history of humanity. And we spoke earlier, and you brought up a very nice point, and you said how the pyramid code itself is really reflective of what's going on today. So, you know, you're 100% right, and I didn't even see it that way, which is another reason why I think it's so important for people to read this on a wide scale, because even me and you know, we can read, but we're two minds, and we're limited to our minds and our beliefs and our truths and our way of seeing things. And when more people read this and more people kind of put their minds to this, we'll begin to see things and really raise collectively on the collective vibration of humanity in ways that I don't think I can personally comprehend, but we're heading in a good direction right now. And I'm very honored and grateful to be a part of it. I'm grateful that we're doing this right now, and I appreciate this time. So
it's interesting, as you were speaking about the pyramid code, I was remembering that you had an incarnation back then. And many of us that are listening to this now and that will listen to the replay have had incarnations during that time that the pyramid code is talking about. And so when we start to open ourselves up to receive the energy, the frequency, the resonance, the information that's coming from the pyramid code, I deeply believe there will be a remembrance energetically with that, with the human, with you, with everyone, that, oh my God, there may have been a lifetime where I remember that. And how that relates to this now moment is, which we talked about earlier, is that everything that we are clearing in this now is correlated and related to what the pyramid code is discussing and talking about, especially the technology.
yeah, I'd love to hear. I know you read it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially from a mind like yours, because I know you probably would see things differently than most people.
Yeah, you know, when I was reading it, it was everything that I had been given. So I wrote an entire chapter basically on this whole piece that's being brought in by the pyramid code.
That's in the divine design in your upcoming
Yeah.
book. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. And basically what my guides told me was there was a moment in history, in the human history, where these higher dimensional beings moved into the earth plane and existed as both human, but very high frequency humans, not you and I human, even though we are higher consciousness and body, high frequency humans. And we came in to shift the human collective. We came in to move them into higher states of consciousness. These beings did. And at the same time, these lower dimensional beings came in as well, these fourth dimensional beings at the exact same time. And what I find so fascinating about this book, or not the book, the pyramid code, the document, the pyramid code, and all of you guys have to go read it, see what resonates. But what I find so fascinating is that moment that the pyramid code is talking about. Well, that was only one moment, right? This was thousands and thousands of years. But the power of the pyramid code is basically showing us that what we are doing right now, in this now moment, what we are courageously clearing and dismantling stemmed from the story that the pyramid code is talking about. It stemmed from those times when the human was playing in and began to experience mind control, fear, manipulation, like all of these really intense things that just started exponentially expanding over these last couple thousand years to where we are now.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly what's happening today with, well, the hope that I see in the document is it showed that although things kind of went south from the original mission of raising humanity up, there is some sort of divine, we can call it, or structure, where when certain beings in power abuse that power will, through divinity and through forces that are beyond us, be taken away. And that's what happened with the pharaohs. If you read in the document, the pharaohs came here, among other beings, with very high power, but for the good. And they were very good and divine beings. And over time, what happened was, well, they started kind of, instead of bringing humanity up, humanity brought them down to a lower level of collective vibration. And by the way, in those times, the pyramid code itself, and there is a code that allows for the activation of the pyramids for their actual use. That's why it's called the pyramid code. But the pyramid code itself was not a secret in those times. It became a secret and was taken away from the collective awareness of humanity and of people and beings in general because corruption came into the picture. And because who used to be divine and spiritual beings turned to be corrupt and sort of like fearless leaders that took over. And just like it's all a reflection of what's happening today. So if that says anything, that's a good thing, because I know a lot of people, and myself included, there is some fear in what's going on in the world. We don't know what's going to happen. But when you kind of zoom out, and at least we do our best to understand what's happening here, I think it becomes more and more obvious that the reason why our world looks the way it looks today, and we spoke about this, Laurie, is because of us ultimately. And when I say because of us, I mean because of the collective. Because ultimately, and there's a famous saying, as above, so below, as within, so without. All of those things, it reflects an idea and a principle of balance in the universe. Well, with balance comes reflection. So what's within us is reflected outside of us. And our external reality is not isolated from us. It's a result of us. And you can say that about all the good in the world and all the bad in the world, even though they're all experiences and realities in themselves. You can even take it to an extreme like Hitler. Hitler was not the problem, and I'm Jewish. Hitler was a cause of the effect. We were the effect, and Hitler came into power because it was a reflection of our collective consciousness at the time. He was simply a reflection. He did not come out to power without us allowing him to be there. And just like we have the power to bring evil into the world, we also have the power to do the exact opposite. And I think that's what we're seeing now, where when we shift, and we said this also, right? When you tell people we can live in a world of the age of love with no war and no disease and no borders and all of these things, and everybody's like, what are you talking about? You can't live in a place without war, because war always existed. And I understand where they're coming from, because we exist in resonance with a specific channel. So as we said earlier, right, we'll call it channel 3, third dimensional reality. Channel 3 on the radio, let's say, exists fear and evil and disease and war and a bunch of different realities, so-called, that are in resonance with channel 3. But what happens when we shift to channel 5? When you shift to channel 5, channel 3 doesn't exist anymore, especially if nobody's in resonance with channel 3 anymore. So on channel 5, evil doesn't exist. War doesn't exist. And it's not because it doesn't exist. It's because channel 5 is not in resonance with it. So it doesn't give it the ability to come into reality in the first place. That's, in my opinion, how we get to the age of love. And that's why awareness is so important, because the power and the choice is in our hands to change the channel from 3 to 5, and we can do it. So it's important to understand that the power is in our hands. There's nothing that's going on in the world today that's not a reflection from our collective vibration as a whole. And when we, exactly that, right? When we shift, the world will look completely different in ways we can't comprehend from channel 3.
Yes, and I'm going to be the devil's advocate. Okay, I'm going to devil advocate it. The challenging piece is that we have to do this. Like, no one's going to pick you up and change the channel for you. No one is. This move from turning the channel from 3 to 5 is the most courageous piece of being human right now, because the awareness that it takes to change that channel is breaking out of the shackles, the conditioning, the mind control, all of that. It is literally breaking out of that you literally have to break out of that radio station. You have to turn that radio station off. And you may love pieces of it, right? Like, it feels comfortable to have like your favorite country song on, but that country song isn't serving you anymore, right? Like, you gotta go to this channel where we are designed as a human collective to shift into, that, where there is abundance and love and joy and peace and freedom and all of these things that we're not necessarily used to experiencing every now. So the awareness that you're speaking of requires us to feel. It requires us to see. It requires us to look. It requires us to love. It requires us to have compassion. And It requires us, here's the piece I want to get to with you. It requires us to understand that no matter what, I don't care what anyone says, no matter what, we're moving to channel 5. And I really want you to talk about TLS, because I think that for people to start to understand TLS and what is actually occurring right now behind the scenes, just a tiny piece about it, because we can't necessarily, what we are seeing is the loud density getting louder, like a bully in a playground, right? And there is so much light that is working behind the scenes that we can't see yet. And I think it's so important for people to start to hold this and to know this no matter what they are physically seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a tiny bit about that?
Yes, and I'll also say before I go there, I think what's making it so difficult is that outlets like the mainstream media do their best to keep us at Channel 3, because all of their words and everything on the news is all about Channel 3. So to tune out of that when that's everything you're receiving, it makes it difficult.
So true.
Just a little piece of my opinion that I wanted to kind of add.
Right, almost like we're in a rave, right? And the only music that we're hearing is that loud ass rave music that can drive you nuts. And you've got to like slowly start to hear that really beautiful song coming from that other room, right? And you got to just start following that other song, even when it's so loud in the rave.
We need more news channels, kindness and good instead of the bad and evil. And I think in and of itself, that will change a lot in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
We will start seeing that on Instagram. There are some pages of kindness movements and kindness news and good news movement and really incredible things. I watch them in the morning sometimes, and you wake up happy. Now imagine that's what was on every channel on TV. It changes the world because it's the information you're receiving is at a different vibration to begin. And if you're receiving higher vibration, whether it's through your news, whether it's through your food, whether it's through your water, whether it's through your surroundings, from the friends and family that you surround yourself with, well, you will turn into that higher vibrational being, because that's
100%.
who you are. You know, you are what you eat. You are what you speak. You are what you think. You are what you watch. And it's who we are.
And then everything, your whole freaking reality changes. Everything changes. Even in the midst of fires happening and chaos happening and political structures dismantled, like even in all the chaos, you're still standing in so much freaking love. You're like, how am I so happy and in so much love right now when chaos is happening? Because that's our job, that's our role, that's our duty, that's what we're doing.
100%. So in regards to TLS, to kind of bring that in a little bit, I know many people have been watching and tuning in and listening, and I'll dabble a little bit of who they are and why I think, in my opinion, based on how they work, why I think they're so amazing, because they really fit into the narrative that we're speaking of right here. In other words, first and foremost, there are forces and there are beings, human, not human. There are beings and forces here to help us. Whether we see it or not is a whole different story. Because a lot of people ask me, well, if that's true, then why does our world look the way it look the way that it looks today? And the short answer is you have no idea how much worse it could have been. And if you ask me, it's not that bad. You know, we could have been in a much worse place. And there are certain things that nobody knows would have happened because, in one example, TLS stopped certain things from happening in the first place. And because nobody was aware of the bad that could have happened, well, then there's nothing to compare it to, right? And if there's nothing to compare it to, then they just see it as this is the way it is. But I can tell you for a fact that they are working to stop many things, and most things are not in the awareness of the collective awareness of humanity. And with that in mind, again, there are, and TLS is one of those organizations and people and forces that are at play, I'm sure among many. You know, I don't have connections to any other ones. But TLS is here to help us. TLS, for anybody that doesn't know, stands for the Light System. Just in short, they're a worldwide organization. They have incredible technology. Their purpose for existing in the first place, and this is why I love it so much, is to guide and assist humanity in reaching a higher level of awareness, not by directly taking down the darkness, but by brightening up the light side. Because when the light gets brighter, the dark will dissolve in and of itself. Inherently, that's just what's going to happen. And the reason why I think that's so important is because instead of focusing on, we got to take down the bad people in the world, there's like a divine understanding, which is where I learned this from as well, where instead of focusing on the bad, you focus on the good, and the bad won't exist anymore, because ultimately the bad exists because of the good. And if you change the good, or the masses, those evil or sort of dark forces cannot exist anymore. Because if you change the collective awareness that created those channels to exist in the first place, we'll be in a completely different place. And when we realize that, and that's everything that they do to try and influence humanity indirectly from behind the scenes. And I love the fact that, because it's absolutely no ego. It has nothing to do with, look what we're doing. It's selfless. It has nothing to do with the individual that's working in the organization. It's all about the greater good, and people do sacrifice and risk their lives for that. And I think it's an unbelievable thing that's going on, and I'm sure that there are many more, but I'm here to tell you about that one because that's the one that I know about. TLS is here to help, and they're doing a good job.
Yeah, and I always talk about alchemizing, which is physics, right? Basically, you take one kind of energy and you can literally shift it into a different energy or a different frequency. That's alchemizing. And what you just described is the alchemization of the dark. So we don't necessarily, like you said, have to go and fight against it. Although if you do, that's fine. Do whatever you need to do, whatever you feel called to do. But just by allowing our physical bodies to hold these higher frequencies, these higher states of consciousness, I've said this to my audience 1,000 times over. The body is a radar. It is a energetic pulse out. And that in and of itself is more powerful than any words that you speak, right? And so if you understand, if you start to see everything as energy and consciousness, you then begin to realize that me just being in this physicality, in this body that's emanating out light, my role, my job is to just hold higher states of consciousness as much as I can over and over and over again, regardless of anything else. And that is actually alchemizing and dismantling the dark. It's literally taking this dark and dissolving it, almost like the Wicked Witch of the West. It melts it. It cannot exist in a frequency that is higher than it, right? So if this large bubble of dark consciousness that we have been consumed in, it's going to, if us as these beings in body start to hold higher and higher states of consciousness, our bubble starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it starts to literally consume by shining light on that darker consciousness, period.
I've before I started this journey, if you want to call it, because ultimately I didn't have to. It was asked, and it was a choice that I had to make, whether I wanted to do it or not. And there was a lot of not hesitation on my end, but hesitation from the people that were telling me, you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? You're going to receive a lot of backlash. It's going to be a problem. Your life's going to change, X, Y, and Z. And I kept saying something that I hold to my heart till this day, and I really believe it's my truth. I don't believe that this information is going to reach people that aren't ready to receive it. I think that for the most part, this information and this knowledge will be received by people that are very ready to receive this. And I think that's why I'm seeing such an incredibly positive feedback from the world. And I was prepared not to get that. I was prepared for the exact opposite. And first of all, it gives me hope, because from what I was prepared for, people are a whole lot more ready than that. And they really, really are. People, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to see that people are ready to receive things that I myself wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. And I kept saying, you know what? even if I do get backlash, it's not a big deal because it's bigger than me. This has nothing to do with me at the end of the day. If people want to put me down for it, it's okay. And I've been called a liar and a fraud, a con man. You're doing this for money. You want to sell books, everything under the sun, and the opposite of you're the Messiah. You're this, and I'm not. You know, I'm a regular person just like everybody else is. I was chosen for a specific task. I don't know all the reasons why, and I took it. And I think it's an incredible thing that's going on here. But the most important thing is the reaction and the feedback that I see from people gives me a lot of hope in seeing that a lot more people are much closer to Channel 5 than I was prepared for. And we're in a really, really good direction. We're in a good place and we're heading towards a good place, even though it may not seem like it. You know, we're looking around, you see everything with this, with these, with pedophilia, and you see fires, and you see just everything going on with everything in the world is just a disaster right now, the economy. But there's one thing, and it's just a principle of how I believe things work, which is I would call a universal sort of foundation of the universe. And it's balance. And if balance does exist, and I wouldn't even say if, because science can prove it too. You know, it's a physical phenomenon that you can show. With kinetic energy comes potential energy. When you pull X, Y will be released. You know, it's just how things work. So instead of looking at the time that we're in as such a negative place of, oh my God, what are we going to do? You know, it's not an easy place to be, but this is the place right before we slingshot up. Because what comes down must fly up. And the further it's pulled down, the higher it's going to fly.
I love that analogy. It's so good.
Something that I do for myself whenever I go through tough times, I you know, like a curve, there's an up, there's a down, there's an up, there's a down. And I ask myself, what does the up part, the peak of the curve mean? And what does the bottom curve part of the curve mean? And I used to call it good and bad. And then I realized, no, it's not good and bad. It's the low part is where you kind of get new tools to be able to apply at the high part. And once you've exhausted those tools because you know how to use them, you need to get more tools. So it knocks you down again because you don't know how to use the new set of tools. And I think that's where we're at right now. We're at the low point, but low doesn't mean bad. It simply means we're at a point of learning, of new tools. And I would say that with such a low, we have a very, very, very high in front of us. And I don't know when it's going to happen. But so long as we do come together and we hold that, because that is a higher vibrational mindset, we will reach a very good place collectively. And we will. Like you said, no matter what, we will.
Oh, yeah. It's an absolute.
It's happening.
It's a freaking absolute. Like I have said multiple times, like, listen, if it doesn't happen, I'll cut off my fingers. Like, it's an absolute in my reality. Like, it's not even an option that it's not going to happen. What I want to piggyback on what you just said is we are higher dimensional beings inside this physical body. We already have the tools. We just have to now access them on an energetic level, which means we have to be vibrating energetically to the same frequency as those tools, right? And so when we move down, like you were saying, get slingshot down into these darker consciousness, it forces us to open our eyes. It forces us to go inward. It forces us to go in. It forces us to listen. It forces us to stop. That's why COVID was so beautiful, is it was a massive jolt down into dark, so that, not even dark, right, but just lower consciousness, so that we could start to awaken deeper into who we are and our tools that we have. Why? Because it's going to get a hell of a lot crazier out there, and we need to be prepared so that when we slingshot out into this next sort of moment, when it gets crazier out there, guess what? All the millions that woke up during these last 6 months and got their tool belt on because they raised their frequency, we're going to be standing in this line with our tool belts on because we just went really low, right? And now we're going to be in this little bit of a higher frequency with this tool belt. We're not exactly sure how to use the tools, but we know we have some tools, so that when it gets even crazier out there, which it's going to get crazier out there, we can now be like, oh, dude, I got this thing and I got this thing and I know how to do this and I can do this now, right? Then you're right. Boom. We're going to move down again, build up more frequency, build up more tools. Off we go again.
That's
Right?
the, it's it's a line like this, but on the way, it's like that. You know, it goes like that.
Yeah.
And without the that, you're not going to have the that. So you need both in order to get to where we got to get to, and it's inevitable. It is the balance of the universe and how things work. But I'd like to kind of piggyback off of what you said to elaborate on something. You said something very important. We do have all the tools already because we are everything. We do come from the same source where everything exists in the first place. And there's something that I wrote about in my first book that I'm going to bring into here. Let's say that we're made of 10 different levels, whatever that means, right? We're on 10 different platforms, like I shared with you the other day, Lori. And it's not platforms that are directly above each other. It's platforms that are going on an angle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right now, we're experiencing life from the third platform. So we can only see when we look down 2 and 1. Now, because we are made of the same source and because we are energetic beings from the beginning, we exist in essence on all 10 floors. And the way to get to the 10th floor is to first become aware that you are the 10th floor. And when we get there, you'll be able to see 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the world will look a whole lot different because suddenly the limited kind of perception that we have of our world today will no longer be limited to 3 floors. It will be limitless to all. And I think that's where we have to head to first understand, because people are asking, how do you get to 5D? And truthfully, I don't know because I'm not there. But I can tell you what I think. And my opinion is that in order to raise to any new level of awareness, the first thing that comes is becoming aware that you exist there to begin with. And that that's a part of you to begin with, because there's nothing that exists externally of you. It all exists within you and not within the physical body, because that's on the 3rd floor, right? You're not your physical body. You have nothing to do with your physical body. There's an awareness that's making your physical body work the way that it works. And it's a vessel to operate through 3rd dimensional reality. But when you increase that level of awareness, 3rd dimensional reality it becomes child's play, if we want to call it that. You know, people think levitation is like, what? That's not possible. Of course it is. All it is manipulating an energetic force called gravity. And if you know how to manipulate the force, you'll fly. So the question is, how do we become aware of manipulating that force? And I don't know. But I do know that it starts with some form of awareness to get there.
I love it.
I can get there one day.
We will. I love this because awareness is absolutely, like, I'm right there with you. Like, everyone's like, well, what is it like? How do we know when we're in 5D and blah, 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 all this 5D stuff, right? And I'm like, listen, I don't know. All I know is that I'm in my now moment, and I'm allowing every now moment to be the now moment, meaning I'm not trying to change anything, right? I never try to change out of anything. So I'm always visualizing myself in a flow state. Like, I'm literally flowing down a river. And if I hit a rock, I hit the rock. I don't care that I hit the rock. I keep going, right? So if I feel angry, or if I feel depressed or sad, or anything that I'm feeling in any now moment, I just allow that to be, because I know that I am flowing into level 10, right? Floor 10. I know no matter what, I'm already floor 10. So what does it matter what I'm feeling in this now moment if I already know that I'm freaking all of it and everything, and I'm going to be standing in floor 10. If you know that as your knowingness.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's funny because science, as we know it today, has become an expert of the 3rd floor. And they tried to reach the 4th floor from the tools on the 3rd floor, and it's just not possible. You know, it's like trying to measure infinity with a ruler. It's not going to happen no matter what you want to do. And there was a quote, I think it was maybe by Tesla, I don't remember, but the quote goes along something the lines of, The moment science brings in the phenomenon of the non-physical, we will do more in the next 10 years than we did in the past 5,000. And it's true, because we focus on everything of the third floor. And so long as you try to explore from the third floor, you're not going to reach the 10th. But if you start on the 10th, you can reach everything below. And you brought the river example, which I liked also, because it's a powerful one, especially with what we're going through now. We're all in the river. And when you're in the river, all you can see is the next bend. And you don't understand why there might be a waterfall, or why there might be rapids, or why there might be this and that. But when you zoom out and you come to a higher level of awareness, suddenly you can see the river from where it starts on the ice cap on top of the mountain all the way to where it meets the ocean. And when you see the start and the end, or the beginning and the end of the river, you understand why every curve in the river has to happen the way that it happens. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way the river flows. And I think with that awareness, it also, for me at least, it's refreshing, because I understand that there's no reason to fear being in the river, because I know that the river leads to the ocean. No matter what anybody wants to do about it, it's a river. It starts somewhere and it leads to source. It leads to the ocean. It leads to where all water is in the first place. And that's not just 5D. 5D is just the beginning. There's 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 as well. And that's also covered in the document. So we're headed in a good direction.
And I'm visualizing all of these beautiful light beams that we are in bodies, right? All floating down the river together in a pseudo physical form, right? But we're these beautiful beings of light, and we're just like, what the fuck is this shit we're in? Like, oh, holy shit, did you just see that rapid we went down? Holy cow, did you survive it? Dude, I survived it, right? But we're these beautiful beings of light in the bodies. We're like, we have to be here. We have to go through this. We have to see this. We have to have the anger, the sadness, the pain, all of it. Mm. And when you see it from that bigger perspective, it makes you accept it. It's like, so freaking what? So what? You got your head banged. Keep going. We've got this. Like, yes, sex trafficking is going to come up. It's going to get nasty. It's going to get horrific. It's going to get awful. You're going to get nauseous. You're going to vomit, like all kinds of crap, right? It's a massive boulder in the river. You may hit it. You may say, F that, I'm going to scoot around it. Mm-hmm. We go, it's part of this rapid. It's part of this river. It's just part of it. And when you hold that, and that's what I love about your messages, Jason, when you speak, because there's so much love that you can feel when you talk. I'm just like, oh, being human is so awesome. And right? Like, it's so great. It's like you have this like magic sprinkle that you give, and I'm just like, oh yes, it's such a fabulous thing to be human. Meanwhile, I'm like, I'll hang up on this Instagram live and be like, fuck, my life sucks.
I will say, in addition to water doesn't stop when it hits a boulder, it just goes around it. That's the reason why the river flows, not because it hits a boulder and it stops and it's like, where am I going to go next? No, it just goes around the boulder. There's a boulder, it happens. When there's a boulder, the water forms around it and it figures it out, because it knows that no matter what has to happen, that water will reach its destination of where it has to go. And that's the equivalent of our destiny. That's where the word comes from, destination. We have a place that we're heading towards collectively and individually. But collectively, I think, is where we got to really kind of push on, because collectively, what we do will really determine how we get there and what happens along the way. And so long as we decide to keep saying, no, we don't want to do this, more boulders are going to show up. But we have the ability to make it a very kind of like seamless ride and just a breeze. And it could happen that way. But the only way for it to happen that way is if we allow it to happen that way, through us. And another thing is, TLS is not responsible for humanity. They're here just to help and guide. Humanity is responsible for humanity. And that means you're responsible for yourself. So no matter what good forces there are, they can't force you to do anything, because you have freedom of choice. And that's how that works. And you can choose you want to do something that's for the greater good, for yourself and for others, to bring us somewhere positive. Or do you want to stay in fear and resist? Because with resistance comes the stop of flow. That's what resistance is. The opposite is acceptance. And embracing comes with acceptance. So I think it's definitely important. A lot of people have, just from the little, somebody asked, is TLS non-physical? No, they're very physical. But from the little that I just saw kind of glancing while we were talking, because I couldn't help it, people have been asking, well, how do we go to 5D? How do we get there? And I just want to address this because I know in 5 minutes we're going to the questions and I don't know what's going to be asked. And I don't know.
Well, really quickly, what does TLS stand for? And then finish your.
Stands for the light system. For
Okay.
anybody who wants more information, either on my Instagram or my YouTube, there's an 8-minute video. You can watch the introduction to who they are, how they work, what they do, why they're here. And there's a lot of other videos and interviews where you can learn more. And I'm happy to answer whatever questions I can. But in regards to 5D, a lot of people are asking how. Now, I can't speak specifically for 5D, again, because I'm not there. So I can't speak from a place that I'm truthfully not, I haven't reached that awareness. You know, I'm still here. But I could give just my quick 2 cents on how to raise your vibration in the first place. Very, like, simplistically. Everything that you do, and when I say everything, I mean tangible, intangible, physical, non-physical. That goes from the words that you speak, thoughts that you think, the actions that you do, the food that you eat, the liquid that you consume, the people that you surround yourself with, all the way up until the pictures in your bedroom and the music that you listen to. Everything is an energetic exchange between you and that thing, whether it's physical or not physical. And what you surround yourself with, whether it's internal or external, whether it's thoughts or people, have an effect on what you're going to form into next. So if you spend time, just an example, with lower vibrational beings, people that are filled with, I don't know, let's say some sort of addiction to substances that bring you lower. They're not bad people at all, but they have the opportunity. And by the way, you see the energetic exchange with the pharaohs and humans, right? The pharaohs tried bringing them up, but because of that exchange, the humans brought them down. So it can go one of 2 ways when you spend time with somebody that's above you or below you in terms of vibrational frequency, not good or bad, just where you're at. If you spend some time with somebody that's on a lower vibrational realm, you can either bring them up if you're strong enough, or if you're not strong enough, they can bring you down. And if you spend time with people that are on a higher vibrational frequency than you are, they can either bring you up or you can bring them down. And it's very important to be self-aware of where you lie in that equation, because you're responsible for your part of that equation. And to be careful who you surround yourself with on both ends of the spectrum. And to make sure that you're doing it not for selfless reasons. I mean, not for selfish reasons, but for selfless reasons. For reasons for the greater good. So that doesn't mean you can't spend your time with somebody that may exist on a lower vibrational frequency than you are. But make sure that your intention is there, knowing that you can bring them up, because that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And again, just in short, your words, your thoughts, don't say, I'm not sick, right? You say, I'm healthy. The subject of your thought has to be on the positive, not the negative, because the universe doesn't hear the word not. It doesn't know what the word not is. It hears what you're focusing on. So if you're focusing on, I don't want war or I don't want evil, you're still allowing for war and evil to exist, because the word in and of itself is a resonance and a frequency that will kind of form into your reality. But when you focus on the opposite, instead of being anti-hate or anti-racism, you're pro-love and you're pro-unity. Well, you just brought in love and unity into the equation instead of racism. Even though you're anti, you're keeping it alive.
I love that.
So just
it's huge.
Wanted to bring in, because it's important. I myself, and the more you kind of like guide consciously your words and thoughts, and it's a process, I'm going through that process as well. But the more you do it consciously, the more you realize everything's in your control, everything's in your power, and your life looks the way it looks because you allowed it to, because that's what you're resonating. And you can shift it in a second if you decide to. And that gives power to the human being. So I just wanted to answer that, or kind of dive in on that before questions were asked.
Beautiful. Perfect timing. Okay. I love it. I love all of that. So we're going to take questions for about 10 minutes. So I'll just pull up some questions, pull them on the screen, and Jason, you can go for it.
Sure.
Oh, here's a 16-year-old. Ready? This is a good one. Let's see if it, okay, there. How can Gen Z navigate these beautiful times we are living in? I'm 16, by the way. It's so awesome.
We're not too far off. I'm 23. I'm just putting it out there for everybody that doesn't know. Your age, I would say, has nothing to do with who you are. You know, your soul doesn't know your age. Your soul knows you, and that's who you are. So my just brief sort of answer to that is, first of all, let go of how old you are, because it doesn't matter. It's who you are, and you can do incredible things. The reason why I say let go of your age is because generally age is associated with certain limitations and abilities, just subconsciously. And if you keep identifying with, I'm only 16, or I'm only 17, or I'm only 20, well, then you might be putting yourself into a system of belief that is in alignment with what a 20-year-old can do and what a 20-year-old can't do. And that may not apply to you. So I don't know what your path is right now and where you're headed and what you're doing. I would assume that if you're on this live show, you're probably headed in the right direction. So continue doing what you're doing, forget about your age, and influence others around you, because your life will change so long as you guide consciously your words, your thoughts, the people that you spend time with. And don't just spend time with people to bring you up, spend time with people that you can bring up as well.
Love it. Okay, ready for number 2? We talked about this one earlier before we were live. I'm going to give it to you.
Sure.
Okay. The Pyramid Code document says those who do not reach 5D will become extinct from the universe. So let's give it to them, Jason.
Okay, so that was not to, at least I think, that was not meant to instill fear. It was meant to do the opposite. Let's change those words to say, you're telling me that anybody that doesn't change to channel 5, when channel 5 will be the only channel one day, will no longer exist. Well, let's think about that logically. If you're on channel 3 and you don't change from channel 3, and one day channel 5 becomes the new channel that everybody exists on, then it makes sense that whoever is on channel 3 will no longer exist, because channel 3 no longer exists, because it's not in resonance with the new collective vibration and reality to begin with. So I would say, instead of looking at that from a place of what's going to happen if I don't change, look at it as an invitation to change the channel, because you can do it. And it's telling you, change your channel and do it out of love, not out of fear. Because if you do it out of fear, you're not going to change to the channel where fear doesn't exist. If you do it out of love, you'll have no choice but to get to channel 5. So yes, it's out of love. It's not meant to cause fear. And just an indication to see where you're at. If it's something that scares you, you know very well that you're on channel 3, which is a good thing, because now you have a measure of where you are and where you want to go. So
beautiful. Yeah. I love it. My eyes are so bad, so I'm trying to read these, and they're so freaking small. I'm like, what does this even say? Let's see. How about this one? This is an interesting one. Not really anything to do with the Pyramid Code, but sort of. Shall all of us go out to the streets and protest, or are there other ways to act these days?
There are many ways to act, but I would break it down to 2. There are physical ways to act, and there are non-physical ways to act, and both of them are very powerful. I would say that before we even get to the protests, everything that we're seeing, and I'll give an analogy of a computer that I've heard once that I like. Everything that we're seeing is physically is pretty much like an energetic code being manifested into physical reality. And if you change the code, what shows up on the screen will be different. So a computer, what is the internet? Some people will say it's just a bunch of pictures and videos and information on a screen, and that's not what it is. The computer, what you're seeing really is the decoding of codes that me and you would not be able to read. Right? So the reality that you see on your screen of a computer is coming from a bunch of codes that me and you don't understand. But that's what I would say is the energetic reality of what makes the screen look the way that it looks in the first place. So I would say, and this is my opinion, that if you only focus on what's on the screen instead of what makes the screen look like the screen in the first place, you're not really going to get anywhere, because you're not changing anything. You're just changing the cause and the effect instead of the cause. Now, it's not, you can focus on just the cause, but focusing on both is just as beautiful. So I would say, before protesting comes in, you first focus on who you are. You first focus on raising your vibration, because that in and of itself changes the code, because you are a part of the code. We are all part of the code. When you change you, you change everything, right? To change the world, you start with yourself. After that, and you can do it simultaneously, protesting, I think, is great because it may raise the awareness to people that aren't even aware of what's being spoken of right now to become aware of it in the first place. But when I say protesting, that doesn't mean you go break windows. That means you do it peacefully. You don't do it out of fear. You do it out of love, and you do it with the right intentions. I would call it a high vibrational protest out of a good place. And the only way a high vibrational protest can happen is if the people that are holding the protest are of higher vibration. And that's why I'd say it starts with you. But simultaneously, I think it's powerful.
I love that. I love that. You speak my language, but just different words. I love it so much. I have a question, because we're coming close to the end. If there's one thing that you would hope that people would get out of reading the Pyramid Code right now, and again, if you go to Jason's Instagram, you can find all the information about the Pyramid Code and his YouTube channel. But if there's one thing that is sort of your intention in, if you could even narrow it to one, right? In terms of what you would love for the human to get out of it when they close that document and it's done, what would that be?
I would start by saying that I think that the document is a higher vibrational document. And just like we said, words and people and all of those things affect your vibration for the better or for the lower form of vibration. This document exists. There are codes embedded in the document that I personally don't have. But you don't have to have them to have them enter your subconscious. And those codes are a very high vibrational frequency. So I would say that just reading it, and I wouldn't say to read it with, because I don't know, my intent can be different than everybody else. My way of digesting the information can be, because I'm Jason, you're Lori, and everybody else is everybody else. We process things differently. But the common denominator among whoever wants to read it is the fact that whoever does read it, even if they don't understand it, because I've gotten many messages of, I don't understand what I'm reading. And it's okay, because even if you don't understand what you're reading, the very fact that you're receiving that information, understandable or not, the codes and that energetic vibration is still becoming a part of you. And if you don't see the result right away, you will in due time, because when you're ready to receive it, like we spoke about, you will receive. When you're ready to see something, you will see it. If you're not ready to see it, it could be in front of you and you're not going to see it. So what I would say the document does, in my opinion, is it gives a lot of information and a lot of high vibrational sort of codes and insights and understandings into your system. Now, some people may be able to activate that sooner than others, some immediately, some in 10 years. But the fact that it becomes a part of your database or your system as a whole, when you become ready, whenever that happens, I think it will hold a lot of value, because it is very valuable in terms of what it is. And just to make something clear, because some people were asking me this as well, it doesn't cost $1. You go, you download it, you give it to whoever you want. There's no intentions behind any of it other than This is for the people. This is for good. It's not because I want something out of it. If anything, it takes a lot of time and attention that I love putting towards, but it's not something that I gain off of financially. It's something that I really do gain a lot out of in terms of seeing the positive effects that it has on people. But that's it. And whoever can see that sees it, and whoever can't, it's okay. But it's anybody that reads it understanding it or not.
Beautiful. Well, we have 5 minutes left, and I want to end it soon, so we have a couple of minutes to save it. But I just want to acknowledge you, Jason, for what you're doing right now, and the saying yes 2 years ago to the stranger on the street that came up to you, not really realizing the impact that you are and will continue to have for humanity for the coming years and years and years. I look forward to seeing what you're going to continue to bring through. I love you so much. You are such an amazing, magical being in that beautiful human form that you're in. I thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait until we do this again.
Yeah.
For those of you that are listening, this will be saved both on Instagram and on my YouTube channel, and perhaps even Jason's YouTube channel. So you'll be able to listen to it over and over again. And yeah, any final words, my friend, before we exit?
Thank you. I think I feel really good about how this went. I appreciate your time. I think you and I are very aligned in terms of our understanding. Like it's amazing. I felt good with you from the beginning, from our first phone call. So thank you very much for all that you're doing, regardless of me. You're doing incredible work. You're helping a lot of people. There must have been 100 people that messaged me, you have to do a show with Lori. You have to do a show with Lori. I'm like, who's Lori?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I just wanted to say thank you on a personal level for everything that you're doing. You're awesome. You're amazing. Continue on the path that you're doing. And you teach me a lot also from the little that we spoke. And I look forward to learning more.
Yeah, and for all of you that are listening now, remember, we are moving into these higher states. We are moving into these higher states of consciousness. The light is just so enormous right now. And we have to just go through, like Jason said, the lows and the high, the slingshot, right? We got to do it, you guys, but we're doing it. We're doing it together. And it's magical and amazing to be alive right now, even in the pain, even in the sadness, even in the craziness that's unraveling. So remember this and choose your reality, choose your thoughts, choose it all. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Jason, so much.
Much.
See you next time.
Yes.
Bye.